memories can be both a blessing and a curse.
Most definitely. Most definitely. So we were talking about, before we came on camera, we were talking about death. And so in the essence of death, or in the impact of death, for me, I've had a lot of people in my life. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. But I've had more than the average. More than my what's the word I'm thinking of? More than my peers, my peers that I know. More than them die. I mean, I've had grandpas, grandmas, obviously, but when I was a young age, when I was 5 years old, I had my grandpa, my uncle, and my great uncle. Possibly, the three most important men in my life die within a year.
So how did that affect you?
Oh my gosh! I think at the time, not as much as I thought, but throughout the course of life, seeing how my life could have been if they were still here, or seeing how my life, certain things in my life, how they would have turned out if they were in my life still, if they were still here. And not just me, but my mother, my sister, everyone around me, because they were, I mean, my grandpa was you heard of the word patriarch. I mean, my grandpa was the patriarch of our family. He was he was such a great man. He was beloved by all. I mean, not that I look for it, but I've not heard a bad word about the man ever. I mean, do you have anything, or have you had anybody like that? Has there been anybody like that in your life that was just the patriarch, that was just like the top dog, not the top dog, but the main?
Honestly, no, not really. I mean, I grew up very fortunate in a stable household, but there was one time out at my place in Colorado, and the whole most of the family was there, and my parents were both gone, and we wanted to do a conversation about them and how we each felt and so forth. And I asked this question at one point: how many times do you ever remember our mother or father telling us that they loved us? And my siblings and their spouses, whatever, were kind of taken aback by that question. And then somebody says, well, yeah, every Valentine's Day card or birthday card. And I said, no. They wrote it often. I love you. How often did you hear them say that?
Yeah.
And they started thinking, and nobody could really remember that was actually expressed to them verbally.
Well, it's funny, like, okay, you mean to talk about the older generations, like my dad and I have talked about how his family, he's one of 12 kids, and he goes, you know what, I don't think that I never really heard my dad say I love you. Because me, I was raised basically by 3 women, and so my mom we always said I love you. We always said I love you, hugs. Very a loving upbringing, and so, but talking about those older generations, his parents came over from Germany. Actually, they were raised here, but their family their mom and dad were immigrants from Germany, and he's like that at that time back in the day. I mean, and he grew up in a rural town. It was all about you got stuff to do. You don't have time to stop and mushy and love and hug. I mean, you just know. You knew your parents loved you. They didn't say it, and they showed how much they loved you by how hard they worked. And so,
And that is what made you feel loved, was how hard your parents worked to support your family?
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, in a sense, and that may not have been how the family took it, but that was how you worked hard for your family. And that's just how you didn't. Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, like, so we've had that. So I mean, to my friends, my guy friends, my lady friends, my family, my dads, my uncles, my everyone, especially after my wreck, after the hospital, after I almost died. I'm very vocal about if I love. Curt, I love you. I mean, I truly mean that. I mean, like, to my family, to my my in-laws, they weren't. I don't think they knew how to handle me when we first met, because I would, like I said, my father-in-law, I'd give him a big hug and say I love you, and he's like, oh, he's a big 6 foot, 300-pound guy, shaved head, looks like a biker.
So it made him
goatee.
uncomfortable.
Yeah, a little bit, and I mean I see that now, but after knowing him for 16 years. But I mean, but still, but with everybody, I mean, like some of my guy friends, I saw probably like 4 of my guy friends today. I told all of them I loved them. I love you, man. Have a good day. I'll see you later. I love you. But that's also me from my upbringing. My brother, who was like your stereotypical all-American high school kid, he died in high school. He died when he was a senior. I was a junior, and
Wow.
and yeah, so knowing, and then me almost dying myself, and having all these deaths in my family, I know more than most. More, I'm sure. I know there's a lot of people that know more than I do, but I know more than most that life is short, and when I die, I don't want anybody to know, anybody that I want to know, to have any doubt that I loved them.
Well, okay, so does your supporting them financially, for example, express that to your kids? I mean, how does somebody know that you love them? And it's like my siblings were kind of taken aback when I brought up that question. And they said, well, of course they did. And I said, did they ever actually express that verbally? And then the conversation kind of changed, and, they're kind of thinking, well, maybe not. Every Christmas card, etc., was "and I love you" written, but was never really verbalized.
Really?
We still knew they did, but it's different, I guess, when it's not expressed. And I think, to a certain degree, all of my siblings and their kids have difficulty with expressing that verbally as a result, because they never really heard that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like I said, the older generations, everyone has a different. Like you said, I mean, you knew they loved you, but nobody really said it.
Right. So what? You're just supposed to understand, even though they did not express it verbally. You're just supposed to understand because of their actions that they must have loved us or me or whomever as a result. Because, they were very supportive. Well, honestly, like, I played trumpet from second grade, or cornet actually, second grade through high school. They attended every concert, every Christmas, deal that the junior high band or high school band would do. But it was still, I guess they just assumed because we're here, he must know that we love him. But it still was never expressed verbally. I was a pretty good tennis player in high school, no big deal, in a small town high school. But come home for dinner after a match that day, did they ask how it went? No. It just wasn't even brought up. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way they were. And you just had to understand that accordingly. And, imagine children that have not succeeded in various aspects of their life, and their parents never expressed their love. What effect that may have?
Yeah, totally.
It's much, I guess, it's easier said than done, obviously. And that's too bad. I just think a lot of parents have a hard time expressing it, either from their childhood. I don't know. My parents were gone before we ever had a chance to have a conversation like that.
Well, it's I don't know, it's one of those things. I mean, you never know. I mean, you never know why people do things. What do they do them? I mean, is it how they grew up? Is it the culture they lived in, the society they lived in? What is it? One person may have had a dad that beat him, but would always say, I love you. And one person may have had the most perfect life, but they never said, I love you. And who knows? It's crazy.
But the thing is, how do you initiate that conversation? That's the tough part, I think. Certainly a kid would have much more difficulty initiating. Why don't you tell me that do you love me? Why don't you tell me that? I had a privileged childhood, all in all, and I have no regrets or qualms, and I loved my parents. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't one of those things that was verbally expressed one way or the other.
Well, talking about how you approach anybody about it. I mean, a parent or whoever. I kind of just went with my dad. Like I said, my mom always, I love you, hugs, kisses. I mean, very affectionate. My dad, like I say, he's an old guy. He's a roughneck. Grew up in rural county. His parents were here from Germany. His grandparents. But my grandma and grandpa. Grandpa died when he was. My dad was like 18, maybe something like that. He was young, early 20s. But so I sit down with my dad one night and just sit there and just came right out to him and said, "No, we were in a truck. We were leaving the oil field." And I said, "Why?" I go, "Nothing. I know you love me. I know you love your family, your kids." I go, "But why?" Like when I say I love you to me, he goes, "Love you, bye." Or when I get off the phone, I go, "Hey, Dad." I call him Victor. I go, "Hey, Victor, I love you." I say, he goes, "Love you, bye." I'm like, and I said to him, I go, "Why do you do that? Why do you, just question."
Yep.
And he said, honestly, I never thought about it, but growing up, we never talked about it. We never said it. And that's what I said the same thing to you. I go, or kind of like I said about, how how did you know they loved you if they never really said it? He goes, well, my mom would say it. He goes, but honestly, she never, she would only say it like when we went to bed, I love you, good night. But she rarely said that. We just knew. And I go, what about your dad? F.A. And he goes, honestly, he never really, and I honestly, I can't remember, maybe one time, if ever, I can't remember him ever saying that he loved me. He goes, but I knew he loved me because how he provided for us. But but yeah.
What prompted you to even bring up the subject?
Honestly,
because that takes courage for a kid.
I don't know.
You know.
Well, and see, I wasn't a kid. I was not a kid. This was like within the last 5-6 years. Like I said, I was helping them out in the oil field, and
well, then it almost is more difficult. I think the older you get, the more difficult it becomes.
Well, ever since my wreck, I just had, like I said, I realized how short life is. And granted, I'm not perfect, and I do a lot of things that don't make sense, actually add up to that. But I said, I get through moments of my life now, and my post coma, post almost dying, post prison life, to where if I have a question, I'm going to ask you. I'm pretty blunt. I'm pretty transparent. I'm not perfect, and I do make mistakes, and I'm going to ask you if I have a question, because like I said, who knows? Tomorrow I might be dead.